David Hux with Myrtle Beach SC, speaking with John Warren, who is a candidate for governor. John, tell us about yourself and why you chose to run for governor.
Absolutely. Well, I'm happy to be here with you today. I'm a businessman, a conservative, and a Marine. And I am running for governor because I really feel called to bring some conservative ideals, some business principles, and clean up Columbia. What I am not a government insider, I am not a career politician, and I am not a lawyer, and I think that's a good thing.
Tell me, our readers have been talking about statewide corruption. It's been a big issue on our pages. What do you think about the current situation with South Carolina state government?
I think it's a sad situation overall. I think we have a lot of good people in Columbia. Yeah. However, the corruption in Columbia is rampant, and we need to get rid of it. And we get rid of it through ethics reform. You know, the number one thing that we can do to clean up government is to enact term limits. That would solve a lot of the problems. Number two, we need to end no-bid contracts. We should have competitive bidding on all statewide contracts. Number three, we need to have arm's length transactions required for all of our state legislators to where there's no improprieties going on. And I think with those three things, we can really clean up a lot of the corruption in Columbia.
You mentioned the arm's length contracts. Mr. Hardy, I don't know if you know John Hardy, but his term expires on the SCDOT board yesterday, and the current governor, Governor McMaster, is considering renewing his contract. He's a son-in-law of Hugh Leatherman, Senator Hugh Leatherman. He's also been on the board for 20-some years. What would you do with such an appointment as that?
I think DOT is one of the most important statewide agencies that we have, and it needs probably the most transformation, the most reform. We need to clean up DOT. We need to enact a common sense strategic policy when dealing with our entire roads and infrastructure project. I know Interstate 73 is probably, I think if there is one department that needs to be cleaned up the most, it is DOT. We need to really enact change and reform to that department. We need to bring a strategic vision to how we handle all of our infrastructure within the state. We need to prioritize roads based on the overall state's needs, not just a few legislators. And right now with DOT, the allotment of funds for roads are not being handed out in a strategic manner, and we need to change that.
John, we're told that South Carolina, since Reconstruction, is primarily a legislative state. What do you think some things that we can do to strengthen our governor's position in the state, to give him more power?
Well, I think right now the governor needs to lead. You know, good leaders lead from the front. You know, going back to 2006, in my Marine Corps days, I led over 300 combat missions. We run to the sound of gunfire. And right now we have a lot of problems in Columbia, and the governor needs to lead out in front of that. I think there is a huge movement throughout South Carolina where South Carolinians, you know, the best thing about our state are our people. They're hardworking, they're honest, and they're God-fearing. And I feel like there is a movement out there that is tired of the corruption, tired of the incompetence, and I believe that with the right leadership at governor, I believe that those people can have a huge impact on persuading their legislature to enact change. And that's the leadership that I'm going to bring to Columbia when I get elected.
Do you have any thoughts on the Santee Cooper SCANA nuclear issue?
Absolutely. I believe that that is the greatest example of total incompetence in our entire state government right now. I am the only candidate that has a comprehensive plan to solve problems at Santee Cooper. The first thing we need to do, we need to fire and clean house the entire board. They have shown gross negligence, total incompetence, and we need to clean house. We need to get a good quality board in there that has a ton of energy industry knowledge and experience. Then we need to do a forensic audit. I think we're all curious as to how Santee Cooper has been run. Where did the money go? You know, the board supervised the last CEO, allowed him to retire after losing $4 billion. He was allowed to retire, not fired, but he was retired and given $800,000 pension per year. That is corruption and incompetence in the highest regard. The next thing we need to do, we need to have a competitive bidding process to bring on an investment bank. Choose an investment bank that has energy industry experience, And we need to have a competitive bidding process to let them do an analysis of the overall company of Santee Cooper and tell us what the valuation is. You know, our current governor says he wants to just sell it, but it's not as easy as sticking a for sale sign in the yard and hoping someone's going to buy it. What is it worth? And then based on what is it worth, what do we need to do to sell it, or is there another option? So we need to keep all cards on the table, but first we need to clean house and we need to get a valuation in terms of Santee Cooper and its valuation.
There's currently a federal push for offshore drilling off the coast of South Carolina. Where do you stand on that?
Right now, offshore drilling is not right for South Carolina. You know, we have amazing beaches, totally support the tourism industry. I am a firm believer of American energy, but right now we can get that energy from Alaska. There is absolutely no reason to bring offshore drilling to South Carolina.
A lot of our folks here are retirees. They've seen their utility bills spike, and they've seen a overall devalue up. They've seen some of the lowest public education scores and test results in the nation. Those two things combined have them very, very upset. Would you like to address public education in South Carolina?
Public education is vital for our state, and it is abysmal that we are ranked 50th in the nation. That is terrible. I'd first like to say, you know, every parent deserves a choice of where to send their child to school. We should never require parents to send their kids to a failing school. Second of all, we need to look at how the funding is allocated. Right now, South Carolina spends around $14,000 per child. That's a lot of money. Unfortunately, only 50% of that makes it to the classroom. So it's getting tied up in special interests and bureaucracies that are preventing that funding going to the classroom. We need to prevent that. So I'm going to be rolling out a comprehensive education plan, but those are two very high-level things that I would like changed within the school system.
And as far as the utility spike, we spoke about Santee Cooper SCANA. Do you believe that it's right for electrical utilities to pass along their failed operations and costs to the consumer?
The first thing that should have been done with this legislative session is we should have passed a law preventing our ratepayers in South Carolina for paying any more in a nuclear project that is never going to come online. The fact that they are still paying for that is really sad, and that would be one of the first things I would do in office to prevent that.
Finally, John, if elected, what are the first 2 or 3 items that you would come out of the gate addressing if you were elected governor?
Sure, so it's a great question. I would say the first thing that we need to do is address the efficiency of government and address the ethics and address the education. You know, those are the 3 things that I think South Carolinians really want improved. And based on my background, you know, I can tell you that being a former Marine infantry officer, being a successful businessman, starting a business from scratch, I can tell you that leadership comes down to 3 things. Number 1, it comes down to an individual's core competencies. Number 2, their core values. And number 3, whether or not they possess the courage to lead. And I can tell you I'm a conservative. I have common sense, and I am here to serve the people of South Carolina, so I have solid core values. And my competencies, I've grown a very successful business. I'm the only one in this race that has actually created a private sector job. So a lot of people talk about economic growth. I'm the only one that's actually done it. So courage, I will fight for the South Carolina taxpayer, and I will ensure that the government works for South Carolinians. And I ask for your vote.